Hello and welcome to Suddenly Single, the new and hilarious dating podcast.
Where we're going to get our celeb mates to tell us about their dating disasters.
We're also going to have a few experts in the studio to tell us where you and I are going wrong.
Come on, and I don't think you've got enough makeup on.
I need the sun, I need inspiration. I just want to get.
Super keen to talk to our next guest on Suddenly Single, Freya North, romance queen.
16 books and counting.
And counting. She also bought a farm quite a few years ago, decamped there after she got divorced with her 2 little kids, and eventually found love.
Bit like you, except you didn't find love. And
What am I doing wrong?
I don't know, you bought the small holding, there's no excuse.
I just want to get. Just want to get out of here.
Freya North, Queen of Romance, 16 books and counting. Surely you know everything about relationships and anything to do with dating. So I'm sure you're going to give us lots of good tips. But I want to start with the fact that you've done something that I've recently done, and I think a lot of people would love to do. 10, 15 years ago, you sold up in London, moved to the countryside with 2 young children on your own and bought a farm. How romantic is that?
It sounds romantic, but the actual practicalities of moving in just before Christmas, the day before we got snowed in, and then finding out that the fuel had run out was anything but romantic. It was very, very, very cold.
I can imagine it's a great setting and lifestyle because I've done something similar. But do you actually meet anybody in a muddy field as for a romantic partner?
Well, when I moved out there, that was kind of my fantasy, my daydream. I spent a lot of time, imagining that would happen, going out for long, long dog walks, trying different routes. And I never met anyone. A couple of growly old farmers.
Yeah.
But actually, I never met anyone.
What made you want to move out of central London or nearly central London into the countryside?
It was always a childhood dream for me to live rurally, even though my parents are from Birmingham and I was born and bred in London. And then I broke up with the father of my children and I really just needed a fresh start. I needed a completely fresh start.
It's quite a dramatic fresh start, though, isn't it?
It was dramatic. But I think sometimes when you're in a period of sort of emotional extremis, somehow, even though you feel at your most fragile and vulnerable, somehow that's also the period when you have this magical well of strength to draw upon and you will take the risks that probably under normal circumstances you wouldn't take because you'd be thinking them through the whole time. And my children were 7 and 5 and I thought if I don't move now, I will have to wait until they've actually left home.
It sounds very idyllic, and it is in many respects, but we touched on the fact that it's not easy to meet somebody in those scenarios because you get to know everybody very quickly. And also, I'm from up north and out from the countryside. People tend to stay in the relationships that they're in rather than, a melee of meeting people in a bar in London, say. Is that your experience?
Yeah, very much. But also, I was on my own for 10 years.
So for 10 years, moved into the countryside. Yeah. Does that mean that you dated or you just was concentrating on other things?
I had a couple of unadvisable flings in that time.
We've had loads of those, haven't we?
Unfortunately so.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about some of the unadvisable dates that you had then? Where did you actually meet these people?
Oh, my goodness.
Did you have the internet? Did you do that kind of...
Well, I avoided the internet for about 7 of the 10 years because I was still wafting around in my romantic novelist guise, just hoping that somebody, would ride a horse in my direction or walk, a dog that was suddenly bounding up to me. I had all the scenarios planned out. And I really also, being a romantic novelist or a novelist of, emotional relationships, I didn't want to do the internet, thank you very much.
Why?
Because it just completely conflicted with every scene that I'd ever written about fabulous meet-cutes in extraordinary situations. And I wanted that. I wanted to... Do you remember that movie where... What was it? If you build it, they will come. Field of Dreams. And I just used to think to myself, if I write it, he will come. And he didn't. And then there's even my mum in her 70s saying, oh, darling, you've got to do internet dating. Everyone does internet dating. And I thought, what do you know about internet dating? You've been with my dad. They've just celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary. You know, she can barely find her way around a computer without preaching at her daughter to internet date. And then I had all my friends saying, oh, you've got to go online, you've got to go online.
So you did?
So I did.
And it...
Horrific.
Why,
First time round, horrific.
Why was it horrific? The actual process of going online or the actual dates themselves?
Both. And in fact,
Okay.
I mean, I've got a rogues, we're lucky I haven't got my phone here because I'd be showing you, which wouldn't make for very good filming. But I've got a whole rogues gallery. You know, the man who had both hands up to chickens.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
What do you mean? Hold on,
attractive.
we need to clarify. Up or just holding?
Up.
Actually,
He was actually going to be
Was he a
roasting
vet?
chickens.
Oh, no,
He
he
was
Oh, right. I had visions of them being alive. And
No.
you had
Dead,
to go to the police. Sorry.
flaccid, pink chickens.
Oh, dear.
With his,
Okay.
you know, the guy that looked like Hitler,
Okay.
the guy that said he was in his 40s and he was older than my parents. And I looked very carefully and I thought, he's wearing a very sober suit and he's in a graveyard. He's done a selfie.
He's been embalmed.
He's done a selfie at a funeral.
Oh, no.
So I put off even letting anyone engage in a conversation with me. And then about a year later, tried it again. Went on 3 dates that I thought I was being very selective about. I don't know how, if I don't swear, am I okay?
You can swear.
Oh, I can swear.
You
Very
can
good,
swear.
very good. So there was a chap, he was a photographer, very nice looking.
Sounds good.
Yeah, you know, into the arts, etc. I thought, oh, he sounds nice. Didn't live too far away, so he met at...
See, local. We always,
Yes.
It's always
Yeah.
good to have
It's
somebody
not,
local.
he wasn't quite local.
Even better.
Yeah.
You want somebody close, but not too close.
Yeah, so met up with him in a pub, and all he did was talk about Can I say that? Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay.
What,
His friends, his dog's his
What?
dog was called Nobby. His dog was actually called Nobby. And after about 20
This is your
minutes...
first date.
Is this
This
going
is the
into
first
is this going
blindish
into a
date.
novel? This is what I want to know.
It's too grim, really.
How long did the date last?
About 20 minutes, and then I excused myself, and he walked out to the car park with me. I then almost ran to my car. But actually, you know, it's funny to relate, but I sobbed all the way home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because after 7 years of kind of self-imposed isolation in the middle of a field, doing something like that took a lot of bravery.
It does
you
take
know?
bravery,
And
terrible
usually
bravery.
of an evening for 7 years.
And also an
I was
investment.
sitting there just in my tracky bottoms. And that evening I had invested in my appearance. I had, you know, gone out with good intentions and feeling positive and feeling brave enough to open up.
Did that affect your writing in a way that you didn't want it to?
Or is
No,
it
not
the
really. Not really. Apart from, there was one book that I wrote during that period, which was a profoundly deep and emotional novel. And I loved the male character. I really, really, I put everything into creating my ideal man. He lived in the countryside. He was a musician. He was quite brooding and thoughtful. And I was so freaked out by how much I was responding to this character that, reader, I killed him. I had to make him die because
You could have manifested him if you hadn't killed him.
I was too worried about the fact, and to me it was a fact, that it was going to be impossible to manifest. And I just thought, I can't have the concept of this beautiful, beautiful man who would know me inside out and deal with all my quirks and not actually be able to have him in real life.
But you know what's sad about that? You wrote your happy ever after ending and then you killed it.
Yeah.
Why?
Because
You just don't think that's really possible.
Yeah. And I was too invested in the possibility of this relationship, and then too all consumed by what I perceived to be the fact that if I if I couldn't have it, if it wasn't ever going to be real, I needed to change the ending.
Have you ever had writer's block where you just think,
Yeah, I
just
did.
can't do this because of everything else going on in my life?
So when I first moved out to the countryside, it was very, very hard because I really wanted desperately, like I've always done, to have this parallel life of my life and the life that I'm writing about. And it was like the characters were talking in whispers in a language I couldn't quite understand. And it was terrifying because I thought, my goodness, I've moved out here. What if I've jinxed everything that I've had? You know, the children's stability, the fact that I used to work for my local library and everything, you know, tripped along and the words flowed. And everything was suddenly very, very lonely and very, very difficult. And it was only when I actually read an interview with Gary Barlow, who'd also had the musician's version of writer's block. And I realised that I'd not confided in anyone about it because I felt deep shame. That
There must have been financial pressure as well,
huge
surely.
financial pressure.
You know, if that's what you were earning
What
your money
if
from.
I can never write again? Who am I without writing? And what can I do? Because I'm completely unemployable in anything else apart from maybe stacking a log pile, honestly. And it was only listening to Gary Barlow talk about the fact that he sat underneath his piano for 3 months, unable to write. I thought, I'm sitting at home staring at the keyboard, unable to write, and then felt not so alone in that. So I just hauled that book out of me.
So what is the process as a writer? Do you go for a long walk in your beautiful fields and start to think, God, wouldn't it be interesting if this kind of person said that to that person, but she's not available? Or do you take it from going to the local butchers and you say, that person there would be a great character? How does it work for you?
For
You're
me,
16 books in.
Yeah, for me, it always starts off with a question that I ask myself, what if? And where the what if comes from is from, you never quite know when suddenly you're in a situation where you step aside and think, oh, what if? So
Can you give me an example, though? Your last book, then, what's the what if in your last book?
Okay, so it was The Unfinished Business of Edie Brown came about when I took my son off to university. And I just thought, what if I wrote about my own experiences in the late 80s, early 90s Manchester, when I went to university? But what if I made it about a girl who leaves a small town and goes to this big gritty city up north? And what if, so it starts to tumble, and then you just can't get to your keyboard. I couldn't get to the keyboard fast enough. But there is no right or wrong way to write. So I know plenty of other authors who plan meticulously every single chapter before they even start to write. But for me, it was just enough to think, what if I go up to the loft and dig out that box that's got all my old uni memorabilia? And that was enough of a springboard for me. Writing fiction feels like a safe space, especially if you have a very vivid imagination, which is something that can be both your blessing and a curse as well. It's a blessing because of my chosen career that I can put this vivid imagination to good use. But when it came to being single, my vivid imagination could almost be destructive sometimes because I was envisaging what I really longed for, and I could be so lost in a daydream and then come through it and just find that I'm still just in my tracky bottoms, at the bottom of the field.
So you'd actually get lost in the story and the
and
strength of the emotions.
Yeah, and then you're back to real life.
When you did split from your husband, if you don't want to talk about it, it's fine, but you've been very open about the fact you think you had a breakdown.
Yeah.
When you went to Hertfordshire and that you found yourself a bit like you say, Gary Barlow sitting under the piano, just sitting for hours, just staring into nothing. And you then took antidepressants for a while. And then ultimately therapy was the answer. So
it was more than just therapy. I realised that I needed to help myself, but that therapy in itself was really helping me intellectualise what I'd been through and where I wanted to go. But that wasn't really treating everything about a breakdown. So then I found the antidepressants hugely helpful for a couple of years in being able to help the chemical side and get that chemistry more balanced. But then I realised as well, so I had the chemical side of the depression being helped along. I had a way of intellectualising. But then what about my spiritual self? So then I became very interested in mindfulness and meditation to kind of address that section that was terribly depleted. But then also it was very important to me that because a breakdown and depression can have quite a catastrophic effect on your physical health as well. So what can you do about that? Sport, exercise, get the natural endorphin, which is the feel-good hormone. So I really upped my physical output every day, cycling, riding, running, getting a good natural high from it. So it was like going through that very challenging period, but with the scaffolding around me. Those were like my four corners, exercise, mindfulness, antidepressants, and the therapy.
Imagine for
so
you.
I really embraced it all.
Did that then lead you to meeting somebody? Were you in a better space to finally open up your avenues in different ways to meet somebody, or was it just good timing?
No, I think I then felt ready because, like, when I did the initial foray into internet dating, I met man, thank you very much.
I'm surprised you went back for number two after
it was
that
a couple
story.
of years later.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Put you off
I
for
just
that long?
thought, let's forget about all of that. And then I did feel, a little bit, I think, curious and inquisitive. Whereas first time round, there wasn't the curiosity or the inquisitiveness. It was more like, I really want to find someone. It was more of a need. It was more of a, this will answer questions and, provide all sorts of stuff. But actually, I had asked so many questions of myself. I'd found the answers. And what I wanted when I then went back into internet dating was really something on top of all that I'd achieved myself, because I knew by then from a lot of hard work that I could look after myself. And then there was this curiosity of maybe I should dip my toe back in. What might I find? I feel so much more robust that I can deal, and probably be more selective in my choice.
So the belt and braces of you leading to successfully meeting somebody are what? Somebody that's relatively close by, somebody the same age?
Oh, no, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. Don't go for anyone too close by.
Yeah.
I didn't really have... I felt much more open to exploring personalities rather than just seeing if someone ticked all those prerequisites that I had. So I think as well, it's quite a relief meeting someone that actually looked like their photo for a start.
Well, yes,
because I
that's a
do
big
remember
one.
in the first period meeting somebody who had admitted to tell me that he was shorter than me, and I'm only 5'2". So I was scouring the crowd for this tall, handsome, dark stranger, and then found him down there. So actually meeting someone that looks like their photo, that's a big plus, because that's someone who's very at ease with themselves, etc. Meeting someone whose profile picture had a dog in the photo.
Nice.
Because then actually the dog was on the right-hand side of the photo, which is where your eye always goes. So I thought, dog. And then I thought, looks okay. So somebody who'd had similar experiences to me, and somebody who's also slightly reluctant about internet dating. So there are a lot of boxes too.
Well, I think it's time that we
Anyway.
bring in our expert, Michelle, who I don't think she can really give you any advice, because you seem to have done a lot of work yourself on lots of fronts, and it's been a successful conclusion. But she's always got a good tip for us, hasn't she?
Well, we need a few,
Yeah, well,
don't
we're
we?
car crashers. We haven't done all the work that you've done.
I just wanna give. Just just wanna get out of here.
So we're joined by Michelle Ellman, who you might have seen on our show before. She's a author and relationships expert, and she's here probably more so to help us out again.
Yeah, exactly. But first of all, talking about dating apps, what was the dating app that you successfully used to meet your man of 5 years?
Bumble. Now, I believe that dating apps, come in and out of favour. I don't know how Bumble is at the moment, but certainly what I loved about it at the time was that the onus was on the woman to make the first move. And that meant that creepy guys couldn't sidle into your inbox and freak you out in the morning.
Man, by the way.
But also it meant that the guys that went on it were really fine about strong women, and they were completely fine about women making the first move.
I'm surrounded by strong women
Well, I tell you what, then I'm getting on Bumble, because I do think
Bumble around.
At a certain age, I would suggest I have a 27-year-old. It doesn't faze her boyfriend at all if she was to earn more money than him, be more successful, etc. I think there are certainly quite a few men of my age and around who don't like alpha females particularly. I worked out a couple of years ago that actually, if I could turn back the clock, I've always gone for alpha men, and I should never have gone for an alpha man.
But sometimes
Because actually I would have been fine with someone who was at home doing the cooking and looking after the
would
kid.
you?
Yes.
But see,
yes,
that's-
I think I
At
would
the
have
time
done.
as well.
Yes. Yes.
See, that's what I originally thought. Then ended up with a guy who wasn't ambitious at all. And then what I realised after the breakup, to be honest, I didn't realise it in the relationship. But after the breakup, I realised when someone's not ambitious, they're actually not proactive in a number of areas in life. And it's not actually about being ambitious within your career. Actually, it's the kind of person who says, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. And it's like a year later, they're still saying they're going to do something. And it's not even about their career. It's just for someone to be ambitious and successful in their career, you need get up and drive, you need motivation, there are so many other characteristics that make someone successful in their career. And that does end up having an impact on the romantic relationship, because it's something like, hey, can you start doing the washing up differently, or whatever it is in a living situation? And they're like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. And then the laundry's still on the table 10 days later, and you're like, if I was doing it, it would be done in 2 seconds.
But I think... sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think as well, it's about somebody who's just completely happy for you to be you. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much about power balance, but, the person that you might find online, may have in previous relationships dated people who were very, very homely. But as long as that person can embrace you and what drives you, they don't have to then be alpha, or I think it's about finding someone who finally is completely at peace with themselves.
Well, I think we should bring in the Goldfish Bowl of Truth.
Just wanna get out of here.
Do you want to go first as our...
I will do.
As our star
Let's
guest?
hope that I can read whoever's writing this is.
I'm afraid it's shocking writing, and I will admit to it being mine this week.
I like this one because
Do
I
you?
actually wrote a novel about this theme. Do you listen to your head or your heart?
Oh, yes.
What was the novel called?
It was called Love Rules.
Love
and it was
Rules.
two friends. Interestingly, that title, women used to hear the title as Love Rules OK, and blokes used to hear it as the rules, love rules. And one of the characters always followed her heart and the other one always listened to her head. I think it has to be a little bit of both. In my younger days, it was always the heart. And that then got me into situations that were then quite emotionally charged, perhaps, whereas the little warning bells that were going on in my head were ignored because love conquers all, and sometimes love doesn't conquer all. So I think as I've got older, I now try and wed the two.
Next question.
Do you listen to your children when it comes to their opinions or not?
Yes. Oh, I've got a good story here.
Great.
Sorry.
No, go for it.
So when Anthony popped up on Bumble,
This is
the one that I'm with the dog, I wasn't sure because I'd been, things hadn't slotted into place, and I'd come away from the internet dating 2 years before. I liked the look of him, I liked what he was saying, and I really liked the dog. But then in one of our messages, he said that he didn't own a pair of wellies. And so my daughter said, she used to call him Bumble Anthony. She said, how's Bumble Anthony? When are you going to meet up with Bumble Anthony? I said, I don't know.
Was there a long process then of you exchanging messages?
A couple of months.
Months?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness me.
Before even going on a date?
Yeah, because I'd had a small tumour on my nose that had to be cut out, and I didn't want to. I just felt very vulnerable and self-conscious, etc. And he knew all about that. And she said, how's Bumble Anthony? I said, I don't know, Georgia. I said, he doesn't even own any wellies. And she went, right. She said, don't come to me saying that you're lonely and that you'll never meet anyone if you're just not going to meet anyone because they don't have a pair of wellies.
Good for Georgia.
I think that's good advice.
And also, I bought him wellies.
Oh, well, there we go.
I bought him wellies. He bought me
Sold.
flowers. I bought him wellies.
On the first date?
No.
Right, next question. Have you ever dated a friend?
No, I have a very strong policy of if you're a friend, you're not dating potential.
I've not dated, but I had a very good female friend that we always flirted heavily, and that overstepped the mark a couple of times, and I always fought it because she was a good friend and I didn't want to lose the friendship, and ultimately I did lose the friendship because of this sexual kind of charge.
But if there was
that
a
was
sexual
between us.
charge, why didn't you try it?
Well, we did on and off, and then it was different times and different countries and all kinds of other excuses that I won't say because that would pinpoint who she is.
Okay.
But ultimately we lost it because of that thing, and maybe in a different world we would have been together, but we were friends first and then it didn't work.
Okay.
Have you ever dated a friend?
No, I haven't. I have to really also quite fancy someone.
Yeah.
And I don't
But can't you
fancy any of my friends.
That's a double-edged
I love
sword,
them
isn't
too
it? That?
much, but they become, my male friends become
Well, you could also
kin.
fancy,
they become like brothers.
and they could also be very good looking, but you don't fancy
Yes,
them. It's
exactly.
just there's that.
Exactly.
I think if you're friends with somebody, I think they would almost need to say it to you for you even to consider it, because that isn't really the way that you're looking at them.
But I also think it's always a risk that the friendship will be ruined. And actually, I have a guy friend who's staying at mine at the moment, and I went to Wales to see him 2 weekends ago, and I put it on my Instagram, and everyone on my Instagram is like, oh my God, I was waiting for when this turns into a love story. And every time I share him, they're like, why aren't you two dating? And my parents are even like, one day you're going to end up together. And
What
I
a lot
just
of
don't.
pressure.
Oh, let's watch this
also-
space.
But I don't
It's a
think
what
that
if.
way. But it's really not, because I don't think about him. As you said, it's like a brother relationship. And actually that is so sentimental and important to me. But I don't view him that way, because it is a brother-sister bond. And sometimes that is much more important than that temptation
That's
of
the thing,
trying
isn't
to
it?
make it work.
As you get older, friends count for a lot because they're very rare that stay the test of time with you.
And
So
more
you
than a
don't want to
decade
risk
friendship
that.
as well. It's a long friendship but it's funny that we still have that thing of, can men and women be friends? Because the moment I share that I have a guy friend who's been in my life for what must be 13 years now, everyone can't believe it can just be friends. And we're like, no, we're just friends.
What's your question?
So, agree or disagree, different partners or even different dates bring out different aspects of your personality.
Absolutely agree. I'm a terrible fitter-inner.
And
Terrible.
also in the negative side, on some dates, that brings out the worst in you. And it's about trying to find the person who brings out the best and the version of you that you like.
I think as well, when you go on that first date, your focus is, I really want them to like me. I really want them to like me. So you will possibly amplify.
Or I really want to go
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Depending.
But you might amplify parts of yourself that aren't really that high up
Yeah.
in your personality. or you might even, which I think is more destructive and problematic, is that you might then quash saying certain things that you really feel and believe in because you really want them to like you.
Yeah.
But sometimes opposites can attract. I went back on a dating app last night.
Oh my God. Did you sleep at all last night?
No,
We're doing
not
so
really.
much.
And there was a very nice Italian man, obviously very cultured, played the cello, etc., etc. Nothing that I would ever really be looking for. But I thought, yes, I'm going to have a coffee with you because I think you're absolutely everything that I'm not. And sometimes that is really quite interesting.
And sometimes it's fascinating if they're talking about something that's passionate to them.
Yes.
I remember I once was talking to a guy on a dating app who was a plumber. The way he talked about water filters, fascinating. I never thought I'd be interested
Hold
in
on.
I'm not
Like,
sure
Good
that...
with his
that
hands. If you've got an emergency at home, tick, tick.
Oh, that's
genuinely
true,
a handy
actually.
person, but also I was like, I never thought someone could make water filters interesting. Like, did you know they actually use bugs to clean our water? No clue. But this guy was talking about it so
It did it for you,
passionately.
Michelle.
that
And
I
on
was
that
like-
bombshell, Michelle and Freya, thank you very much for coming in for Suddenly Single. And we'll hopefully, next time we all get together, have some more positive news on your date with the Italian.
Yes.
You'll be fluent.
Yes, mamma
I
mia.
doubt it.
Yeah. Just wanna get out of here. Woke up feeling good.
On the next episode of Suddenly Single, we have the force of nature, the gorgeous Chizzy Akadulu.